Hi everybody, this is Michelle. I hope you've had a great week so far and welcome to our third language Wakey Shakey, which has been inspired by looking at some of your student writing that I've seen across the secondary section over the last couple of weeks. Today we're going to be looking a little bit at discourse, which is really the way that ideas are organised, either when you're speaking or when you're writing. And one of the most common features of strong discourse is connectors. So I want to go back and give a little refresher on this element of discourse, and of course it's relevant to all of the subjects across the entire curriculum. What I've noticed about connectors is that people either don't use them, or they stay in a pretty safe space and use one or two connectors again and again and again. This is quite annoying for the person reading, and it actually really limits the expression of your writing. It's really important that you know how to use the connectors properly in terms of grammar and in terms of sentence structure. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is how we use connectors to show contrast. And showing contrast is something that you need to do in lots and lots of subjects across the curriculum. So we use different connectors depending on what the aim of our sentence is. So today we're looking at connectors that we use to compare or contrast ideas in one sentence. Each of these connectors can be used to contrast ideas, but it's important to know how to use them so that you feel 100% confident in your range of language and the way that you're using them. So we're going to look at 5: despite, although, while, in spite of, and even though. And we're going to do this by thinking a little bit about Shrek and his much less well-known cousin. Have a look at the following sentences. To help you see the pattern, I've put the connectors at the beginning of the sentence. So just read through them together. Okay, so what you have, for example, in this first sentence is two clauses or two main ideas which are being connected. Sometimes people don't use the connector and they just put a comma to connect these two ideas. Obviously you can't do that. Please don't do it. If you connect two main ideas, you need to do it grammatically, not just with a comma, and the way that you do this is with a connector. But what do you notice about the patterns? So what you should notice is that these words, although and even though, are used differently to the words like despite and in spite of. And the reason for this is that although and even though are conjunctions. Some people say while as a conjunction. I think it's being used in these sentences as a conjunction, even though some people say it's an adverb. So the way that they're used is a little bit different. So although and even though are followed by clauses or complete ideas with a subject and a verb. Despite is followed by a noun or an ing form of the verb. So if we look at the examples, you can see it here. Although many people like Shrek, here you have a complete clause, don't you? Many people like Shrek. Although many people like Shrek, they don't want to look like him. Whereas here, you've got despite the rain. Rain is a noun. So that's an example of the first one here. Here, despite hating flowers, he picks them for Fiona. So here we have despite plus ing. Okay, so let's just go back to the examples. Here, although many people love Shrek, so you can see there's a complete clause here. Even though many people love Shrek, another complete clause. While many people love Shrek, another complete clause. Okay, but here, despite many people loving Shrek, you have the ing form of the verb, don't you? Here, despite the fact that many people love Shrek, here you have a noun. So despite the fact that. And again here, in spite of the fact that. Again, you have another noun. So you can see that the pattern's slightly different because although, even though, and while are used as conjunctions, and despite and in spite of are used as if they were prepositions. Okay? Let's see if it works in the past. This is Shrek's cousin that I mentioned earlier before. Much lesser known and far less good looking. So he was a writer in the past, but now he's just an unemployed ogre. So you can see that all of the verbs here are in the past tense. So let's just see if the same pattern works. Although Shrek's cousin was a great writer. Okay, it works because we have a clause here. Even though Shrek's cousin was a great writer. Again, we have another full clause. While Shrek's cousin was a great writer, again, we have a clause. So our conjunctions work in the same way. Okay, let's look at the past with despite. Aha, despite having been a great writer. So we're still using the ing, aren't we? Despite the fact that Shrek's cousin was a great writer. Here, we're still using the noun. and in spite of the fact. So again, we're following the preposition with the noun. So it holds true. Whichever tense you're writing in, it's going to be the same using these connectors. Okay, just for dessert, we also have to think about the punctuation. In all of the examples that I gave you before, I put the conjunction or the preposition at the beginning of the sentence. Now, obviously you don't have to do that. You can put them in the middle of the sentence to join the two clauses or the two ideas. So, although Shrek's cousin was a great writer, comma, he never found fame. Perfect. Now let's put it in the middle of the sentence. Shrek's cousin never found fame, comma, although he was a great writer. That's perfect, it works. Other example, using a preposition despite. Despite having been a great writer, comma, Shrek's cousin never found fame. Let's change the order around a little bit. Shrek's cousin never found fame, comma, despite having been a great writer. So it worked perfectly well. You just need to remember that using connectors isn't really rocket science. It instantly raises the level of sophistication of your discourse, and having a variety of different connectors, connecting a variety of different ideas, is really the way to make your reader feel that you know how to organise what you're talking about really, really well. Okay, so that's it for today. There is another screencast on the ALD YouTube site, which does go into more details about other kinds of connectors that are used for other ideas. But this is just a little refresher on the grammar of connectors that do show contrast. So I am sending you a big cheeky grin and saying a big cheeky ciao for now. Have a great week.